Are teenagers sociopaths, and when do they finally develop a little bit of empathy? This is a question that some researchers in the Netherlands asked, and they published a study about this, and it's a multi-year study, about 6 years, that they published in Developmental Psychology. So what they found through behavioral reports and self-reports among teenagers is that teenage girls usually don't develop empathy or the ability to put themselves in someone else's shoes until they're about 13. And then that kind of increases as they become adults. For men, or for boys, I should say, it's a little different. So let me read you what the results were, and this is according to the Wall Street Journal. Cognitive empathy, or the mental ability to take others' perspectives, begins rising steadily in girls at the age of 13, according to a 6-year study published recently in Developmental Psychology. But boys don't begin until age 15 to show gains in perspective taking, which helps in problem solving and avoiding conflict. Now, the really interesting part of this is, at 13, girls start increasing their level of empathy. However, for boys, it's quite the opposite for about 2 or 3 years. They actually experience a dip in empathy, and then finally around the age of 16 or 15, they start noticing a little bit of an increase. So obviously, everyone knows that teenagers could be a little difficult to raise, a little difficult to deal with, but now there's actual scientific evidence behind the reasons why they're so difficult to deal with.
More specifically, adolescent males actually show a temporary decline, Wall Street Journal continues to explain, between the ages of 13 and 16 in a related skill, effective empathy, or the ability to recognize and respond to others' feelings, according to the study. Okay, so this actually explains a lot. Mm-hmm. So number one, there's always a question of like, oh, are we born pure, and then there's all the corrupting things in society, and that makes us into, some people into bad actors, etc. And then the other group is we're born totally evil, and society civilizes us. I've always found the we're born angels camp to be comical. Mm-hmm. Like, have you ever seen a kid, right? My toy, my toy. Get out of here, right? So, look, I love my kids. Of course, I think they're angels, right? But come on. Of course they're born selfish. Of course they are. They got to survive. That's their survival skills. Like, give me, right? I got to put it in I got to survive, right? And I'm competing with everybody else to survive. If you don't civilize them, they're going to be vicious little fuckers, okay? And this is the science that shows it. And the really interesting part, as you pointed out, Anna, is that maybe that's why they call teenage boys dipshits, because they take a dip, right? They get worse before they get better.
They get worse before they get better. And also, it's no surprise that, emotionally and developmentally, girls mature more. They mature quickly compared to boys. And now there's actual evidence focusing on a very specific thing, mm-hmm. a specific characteristic. But one thing that I will say is, as you get older, I experienced a very, very noticeable change in my level of selfishness. And I had a conversation about that with a really good friend just the other day, which is why I love this study. She said that we've been friends for a really long time, since we were teenagers. She's like, you are such a different person today than you were when you were a teenager. You were unbearable when you were a teenager.
Well, bless her heart for sticking with you.
No, she's my best friend. I love her. She's my sister, so she can be as honest as possible with me. And I noticed that as well. Like, I have more fulfilling relationships because I'm able to have that certain level of empathy and open-mindedness. And so there's something really comforting about that, and it makes just relationships better.
Yeah. No, look, I was very different when I was a teenager, too. First of all, I was a Republican. So obviously I had no empathy for other human beings. No, seriously, look, I mean, I had empathy, and that's why I would, try to step in and help kids who were being picked on and stuff like that. But in other ways, I was a prick, and a lot of the things that I did back then, especially to the teachers, I was kind of vicious to the teachers, right? I'm like, Jesus, why did I do that, right? Mm-hmm. And it's totally unacceptable. But you were literally a bit of a different person back then. Your hormones were different, yep. Your brain was structured differently, and you see here that you literally had less empathy. But I actually think that that's exactly why parents have to emphasize empathy even more. It's the one thing that socializes us the most. I mean, the sociopaths, the people who are your serial killers, etc. They feel no empathy.
Exactly.
Right? They have no connection to other people, so they think like, I killed that person, who cares?
It reminds me of that 14-year-old bully from Florida who basically led another teenager to kill herself, and then after the teenager killed herself, she showed absolutely no remorse. She said that she did not give a fuck, right? I'm quoting her. And it makes you kind of realize, like, well, she probably has this issue. She just does not have any empathy. Her brain hasn't developed it yet. Because how can you be so cruel? So at least this gives me a little comfort in knowing what's going on in this girl's brain.
And she might even evolve out of it and then think, my God.
I freaking hope so, yeah.
My God, what have I done? It also shows you that a good reason why we shouldn't give life sentences to kids that are under 18 for whatever they might have done. Like, look, when it comes to murder, it's super hard, obviously, right? But there's a reason why we treat juveniles differently than adults. Part of the reason is because they haven't fully formed yet. And they're going to be a little different when they grow up. So a fascinating study, and it just goes to show you, if you're a parent, most important thing is emphasize empathy, because they might be lacking it a little bit. So you're going to have to work overtime to teach that to them.